Okay, today I'm going to do a little product review of the Axcel Contour Brady edition. Comes in this little package. For me, I've got right-handed large. There's a measurement tool that they use on their website. I'm not going to go into all the details of how it's actually made and so forth, but you can go to Axel Archery.com and you can look this up. Essentially, that you hold a Sharpie and then you have put a couple dots on either side, measure the distance across, and that should tell you the size of the tab that you should order. With that in mind, that's how I was able to get the size determine the size that I wanted here. They do give you a couple of Allen keys, which are really nice. There's two different sizes there. Most finger tabs that you buy, there aren't any instructions. There's not anything that explains explicitly about what the three different layers are. So picking this up for the first time, this is the nickel edition. The Brady is kind of this nickel heavy. There's some tabs that are out there that have been that are made of brass, such as the kind of the KSL tab here. Like this is made of brass, this is made of nickel. It's kind of comparable in that sense. The idea is that to have a weighted tab to help you have a better kind of finish, cleaner release and so forth, especially when you're shooting higher weights, higher draw weights. So this is kind of a very different type of design. I can feel already that's like, okay, that feels very different, especially with this contour. Helps you really know, like, if your hand is twisting on the string, if you might find yourself, you have those shots that don't quite go off at times, that you might be twisting, and you would feel that once you get out of these kind of contours. They're very deep. So I'm curious to see like how comfortable this will be, not so much on the inside, but on the edges. One thing I find that's really interesting, compared to a lot of other finger tabs, that this finger tab has a much thinner and much more shallow spacer. So a lot of finger tabs, when you put them on, they set pretty far back, and I always found that to be a problem because I'll have those finger tabs dig so hard into the webbing of my fingers that it starts to hurt, and actually prevents me from being able to get a good deep hook, which kind of forces my fingers out a bit. This looks like I'm able to kind of put it right here and not have it recess so far back, so that I can have it as far out as I need to. We'll see how that works once I start shooting. And strangely enough, for whatever reason, this tab did not come with the screw for the finger tab. Luckily, I've got a lot of extra screws lying around and so forth. You have a lot of leeway here. So this tab, with this spacer, there's only one hole to drill down. A lot of the other tabs, like if you look at the KSL finger tab, it has 3 holes that are in the spacer, and you have to choose like which one you want to be able. And so you have a very limited range of how much you can move this in and out. This moves out quite a bit, as you can see, way back here versus out here. Not everybody's hands are the same. Some people's fingers are longer and shorter in relation to the size of their actual palm. So this kind of gives you a lot more versatility in how far you can move this, as you can see. So you can move it in and out as much as you want, and then also change the angle as well. A good thing I like about spacers is I rather have them a little thin than too thick, because it's always easier to kind of build up rather than constantly sort of shave down using some sort of like Dremel-like tool like this and so forth. Sometimes, depending upon how much, how thick this is, I want it snug, but I don't want it digging in and kind of causing discomfort and so forth, because that's a distraction when you're shooting. So I'll use something like this, be able to kind of put it around if needed. They've actually gone out of the way and actually tapered this, which is kind of nice. Most of the time it's flat, it's kind of square, really hard to be able to get through the holes. This makes it a lot easier, and it just slides right through. Look at that. It just goes right through, no problems, no issues, and so forth. And now the way they talk about how to actually assemble this is that, you just really need it kind of for the middle finger, and then you kind of take this guy and you put it through here. Honestly, I'm not really wild about that. I'd rather have it go through and kind of wrap around either all three or at least just these two fingers. So that's how I'm gonna set it up. I've decided to kind of try out to just use some Velcro on here. Okay, I actually, instead of going on the outside, go on the inside, and that's much more stable, more comfortable, be able to have that. It does have cordovan. It's very, very thin cordovan. And then there's this rubber layer. Brady talks about this rubber layer in the video that he had with Axel Archery, going over sort of how the tab was made and built and everything. I'll post a link to that in this video. And so like this is like this protective layer for his fingers, protecting his fingers from, you know, doing any sort of damage and nerve damage and so forth. And then we have sort of, you know, the facing of it. So I'm curious like how well this kind of holds up, and especially with this very, very thin piece of cordovan. I'm used to kind of much thicker pieces of cordovan. So you can kind of see like how much thicker this is compared to that. So we'll see how that goes. Again, as I said, I'm going to shoot, you know, a bunch of shots out of it, 50, 100 shots out of it before I even consider cutting it down, because I want to see like where does the serving lines line up. So when you shoot, you get sort of like these little lines that are on the finger tab itself that start to appear, and that lets you know like how much of your finger tab is in contact with the string itself. So I'd say it's best to just try to shoot this bunch of arrows out of this, see like where the string lines up onto the finger tab. As you can see, it's not based upon if my fingers are straight out, like having full coverage, right? Because we don't shoot like this, we shoot like this, right? Or is it various forms? Some people are more further out, some people are more on their tips, some people are a bit deeper. So this will help you kind of get like a gauge of what that means. Put on this shelf here, I like to be able to put it down enough because I don't want to go, I want to be able to anchor with this. And this is just an additional reference point, so to speak. These screws are tight. I mean, I'm trying to move this seriously and it's not going anywhere. So everything, as I said earlier, tightens down really, really well. A lot of tabs, it's like you have to really ratchet it down and in the end probably strip out the screws. These seem to stay pretty well. Next thing is I'm going to adjust this plate, which is really cool because it can come out and you can swivel this around to be able to go into the contour of your hand. Why? Because when you're pulling back, you want to be able to have your hands stretched out, have more consistent hook throughout your shot. And if you're here, when you first initially pull back, right, and then you come to anchor and stretch your hand out, you're actually trying to get yourself more settled into expanding through the shot. Where this, if you do this as you pull back, you're actually going to change, like you're going to have a clicker go off early or maybe not at all. And you're deciding how you're expanding based upon your hand tension as opposed to presetting your hand in the right place throughout the entire shot. So this helps kind of reinforce that. Like, feel this digging into your hand, chances are you're too much like a claw and you're not stretched out. So this has a bit of adjustment here, so that it, you know, it can go in and out, up and down, so forth. And then there's a screw right here, as you can see. Actually, you can get it in from both sides, which is pretty cool. Usually it's either one side or the other, but this is actually nice. You can screw it down on this side or on this side, and then you can adjust how far this turns out and how much this goes up and down. So if I put my hand on it, I can say, okay, well, I kind of really like it right about here, you know, and that's not totally straight on. That's at a bit of an angle. Now I'm going to try actually shooting with it for the first time and seeing how this works out. Wow. That actually feels really good. That's surprising considering how thin these layers, as I talked about before, how thin these layers are. That actually feels really pretty good. So I have to say, after shooting it for several ends, it really is the most comfortable tab that I've ever shot with. You know, as I said, I made a couple modifications. One was, you know, using a Velcro strap as opposed to the elastic that is given. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Most of it's really to do with feel. And as I said, you know, I just replaced the screw that's there with one of my own because it didn't come with it. Aside from that, I mean, it's, you know, a very thoughtfully made tab. Another sort of feature I want to explain as well is that it comes with, you know, if you want to replace the leather, you don't have like 20 different screws. You really only have to do this one, and that one to take out the spacer, and these 2 screws, and that can disassemble the whole thing. And it feels pretty good. Curious how long, how long and how well it'll hold up over time. You can see that there is this middle layer that's actually rubber. It stretches a little bit. See, it's got a little bit of a give there. Whereas sort of this on the string side is this kind of this very thin cordovan, and then sort of this kind of felt material that most tabs have. And of course, this is going to wear out sooner more than anything. So I've got lots of extra of this material that'll make it easy to be able to switch out. It's performing pretty well, even straight out of the box. I'm shooting at 70 meters, and it's just dropping right in there, and it's not even totally broken in yet. So I would highly recommend getting this kind of tab, getting the Axcel Contour tab. It makes it very comfortable, very easy to shoot. I'm always a fan of archers helping design equipment rather than sort of here's equipment that has been designed and hopefully you can make it work for you. So it's a completely different model. I really encourage archers to be able to give companies that sort of feedback loop to say, this is what we need, this is how we need it, this is what works for us, and helping sort of raise the standard of equipment. So hopefully you guys found that useful, and talk to you guys soon.